Your $1,000 Glock just became a fancy paperweight, all because you made one of these rookie mistakes. I've witnessed far too many shooters ruin their semi-autos simply from not knowing any better. Some of these errors aren't just bad, they can actually cause catastrophic failure. In today's rundown, I'm breaking down 13 of the most common ways folks end up wrecking their pistols. Quick note, everything you're about to hear comes from years of personal experience and hands-on range time. Your results may vary, and no advice beats reading your firearms manual and following proven safety practices. Ignoring malfunctions and powering through. This one's about the "it'll fix itself" mindset, which can turn small problems into serious failures. If your pistol starts choking and you just push through like nothing's wrong, you're asking for trouble. Think of it like ignoring your car's check engine light on a cross-country road trip. A stovepipe malfunction is a classic red flag. Instead of figuring out what's causing extraction issues, many shooters just rack the slide, clear the jam, and keep sending rounds. Meanwhile, the extractor's overworked, possibly scraping brass from a dirty chamber. Or maybe the recoil spring has lost tension. Each malfunction you ignore puts stress on key parts. That extractor gets pulled beyond what it was engineered for. The ejector fights against poor timing. Your feed ramp starts taking hits from improperly fed cartridges. The most dangerous scenario, a squib load. That's when a round goes pop instead of bang, and the bullet gets stuck in the barrel. Keep pulling the trigger, and you could turn that obstruction into a pipe bomb. Every failure is your gun sending you a warning. Stop immediately. Identify the issue and fix it before you continue. Homebrew modifications and DIY tinkering. Nothing screams, "I know better than the designers," like cracking open your pistol and going to town with a Dremel tool. I've seen far too many otherwise solid handguns wrecked by overconfident hobbyists who thought they were improving things. It's almost always the same story. It was flawless until I tried to upgrade it. Take trigger jobs, for example. Some guy decides his trigger pull is too heavy, so he starts grinding on the sear, not realizing those parts have exact engagement angles for a reason. Congrats. Your carry pistol is now a negligent discharge waiting to happen. One guy I knew thought polishing every part of his striker-fired pistol would make it butter smooth. He removed so much metal that nothing fit properly anymore, and reliability flew right out the window. Then there are the folks who install red dot optics using extra long screws that wind up punching straight into the firing pin channel. Gun looks fine until it seizes up under recoil. Moral of the story, leave complex upgrades to trained gunsmiths who understand the mechanics behind the magic. Skipping inspections and not replacing worn-out parts. This is where trying to save a few bucks can cost you big. People will drop hundreds of dollars on ammo and gear, yet ignore the fact that a worn-out $15 recoil spring can take the whole system down. Recoil springs don't last forever. They compress and decompress under high stress, and over time they get soft. That's when you start seeing failures to extract, feeding problems, and unpredictable ejection patterns. If you don't replace that tired spring, your slide may not travel far enough to fully cycle. This stresses the extractor and ejector parts, now taking abuse they weren't designed for. I've seen extractors worn to the point where the hook couldn't even grip a casing anymore. Instead of replacing it early, the owner kept blasting through rounds until it failed completely during a competition. Magazine springs are another overlooked culprit. Leave mags loaded for too long, and those springs lose their strength. Now your gun can't feed properly, and you're stuck clearing malfunctions. The smart move? Keep spare springs in your range bag and stay ahead of wear before it causes real damage. Constant dry firing without snap caps. But dry fire practice is great for improving your fundamentals, but only if you do it right. Repeatedly dropping the firing pin on an empty chamber can hammer your internals in ways you might not expect. This is especially true for rimfire pistols like the .22 long rifle. Those guns are designed for the firing pin to hit the cartridge's brass rim, not the steel wall of the chamber. Every dry fire strike digs into that metal, damaging the pin and potentially the chamber face. Even center fire pistols can suffer. The firing pin or striker still slams forward with force, and over time, this can lead to mushrooming, cracks, or complete failure. I've met shooters who obsessively dry-fired hundreds of times a week, thinking they were saving ammo. Then they got to the range and couldn't figure out why their gun wouldn't ignite primers. A $10 set of snap caps could have saved them a $100 repair bill. These dummy rounds absorb the impact and preserve your firing pin. If you're going to train dry, do it the right way. Limp wristing. This one's way more common than people admit, especially with lightweight polymer-framed pistols. If your grip is loose or inconsistent, your pistol may not cycle properly. Here's what's happening. A semi-automatic depends on the frame staying relatively still while the slide does its thing. If your wrist isn't firm, some of that recoil energy goes into moving the whole gun, not just the slide. Polymer frames are light and don't provide much resistance. Without a strong grip to anchor the gun, it rocks back instead of letting the slide fully travel. That leads to stovepipes, failure to eject, or short stroking issues. I've seen new shooters blame the gun when, in reality, they just needed a firmer grip. This isn't just about hand strength, it's about building proper technique. Get your thumbs high, wrists locked, and elbows slightly forward. Grip training tools can help too. Remember, your pistol needs a stable platform to run smoothly. Riding the slide instead of letting it snap forward. This one drives me nuts because it's so easy to avoid. But I still see it all the time, especially at public ranges. Folks who think they're being gentle by guiding the slide forward are actually causing misfeeds, premature wear, and unreliable operation. Here's what really happens. You release the slide, but instead of letting it slam forward under full spring power, you try to control its movement with your hand. That messes with the momentum needed to strip a round from the magazine and properly chamber it. Now your pistol's out of battery. The slide isn't all the way forward and locked, which means when you pull the trigger, the firing pin might not strike the primer correctly, or worse, the barrel might not be fully engaged. That can lead to light primer strikes, no ignition, or even an out-of-battery detonation, which can seriously damage your firearm. Even if it does go off, the slide may not travel back with enough energy to extract and eject reliably. That's when stovepipes and misfeeds show up. What's even worse, this builds terrible muscle memory. In a high-pressure situation, you're going to do what you've trained. And if that means babying the slide, you're setting yourself up for failure. Always pull the slide completely to the rear and let it fly forward under full tension. That's how the gun was designed to function. Running junk magazines or using damaged ones. Let me be real with you. What most handgun malfunctions I see can be traced back to garbage magazines. And yet magazines are the last thing people think to replace. I've watched shooters fumble through malfunction after malfunction with cracked feed lips, dented bodies, or magazine springs that are barely functional. The feed lips on a mag are shaped precisely to feed each round cleanly. Once they crack or bend, those rounds start nosediving or double feeding. Then you've got magazine springs that have lost tension over time. Sure, it works for the first couple of shots, but by round 4 or 5, the spring's too weak to keep up, and now the slide outruns the magazine. Feeding issues start piling up. Instead of blaming the worn-out mag, shooters start blaming their ammo, their grip, or even the gun itself. Even worse, buying knockoff mags from unknown brands because they cost half as much as factory mags. On the outside, they look identical, but inside, they're a mess. Followers that bind, uneven spring pressure, and feed lips that weren't even formed correctly. And let's not forget about filthy mags. People will baby their pistol during cleaning, then shove a magazine full of grit and old oil right back in. Keep your mags clean. Inspect them regularly and replace springs and followers when they show signs of fatigue. Wes. Botching the breakdown or reassembly. This is where I see a lot of people turn a perfectly fine firearm into a paperweight. If you're forcing parts back together, using pliers to make something fit, or bending springs like you're doing garage work on a lawnmower, you're in the danger zone. I've seen shooters nearly pop a vein trying to jam a recoil spring assembly into place backward, stressing parts that are supposed to last thousands of rounds. One of the biggest red flags is watching someone disassemble their pistol while following a grainy YouTube tutorial on their phone. Halfway through, they realize the trigger bar is upside down, but instead of going back, they just force it in and hope for the best. Then there are the folks who lose a spring and think, It's just one part, it'll be fine. That one tiny spring might control striker safety, extractor tension, or the slide stop removing it can result in catastrophic failure. I once saw someone bend a slide stop spring into a corkscrew with a screwdriver because they didn't want to wait for the right tool. Do yourself a favor. Read your manual, take your time, and never force parts that don't fit naturally. If something feels off, stop and figure out why. Over-cleaning or using the wrong tools and chemicals. Some folks take gun cleaning to absurd levels, like scrubbing down their pistol like it's a surgical instrument. The problem is, they're doing more harm than good. I've seen people use steel brushes on aluminum frames trying to get every speck of fouling out. Guess what? You're grinding away at precisely machined surfaces. Now that frame-to-slide fit you paid top dollar for, it's gone. You've introduced slop into the system. And don't even get me started on chemical abusers. These are the folks spraying carburetor cleaner or industrial degreasers on their polymer guns because they think stronger is better. No, it's not. Harsh solvents can eat into polymer, strip away protective coatings, and break down lubricants your gun needs to function. One guy I knew decided to deep clean his striker-fired pistol using aircraft paint remover. It cleaned all right. It also melted the trigger housing and warped the frame rails. That $1,000 sidearm turned into a shelf ornament. Use products specifically made for firearms. Apply pressure only where needed, and understand that a functional clean is good enough. You don't need to sandblast your gun to keep it running. Letting your gun sit dirty. Some shooters act like cleaning is optional, something you do when the mood strikes. But trust me, letting your handgun sit dirty is like skipping oil changes on your truck. Carbon fouling, unburnt powder, and metal fouling build up fast. They hold moisture like a sponge, and that combo leads to rust, corrosion, and performance problems. I've looked down barrels that were so rusted the rifling had vanished completely, smoothbored themselves into being useless. The real damage happens in the action. If carbon cakes up in your firing pin channel, your striker might not move freely. Extractors get so packed with gunk that they lose tension. Feed ramps start choking on powder residue. And yet some guys will say, "It's a Glock. It runs dirty." Yeah, for a while. But just because your pistol can function with grime doesn't mean it should. Every extra round fired without cleaning shortens the lifespan of crucial internals. At a minimum, clean your handgun after every range trip or once a month if it's sitting unused. A clean gun isn't just more reliable, it's a safer gun. Overdoing or underdoing lubrication. A lot of shooters treat lubricant like it's either gold dust or gravy. Hardly anyone finds the middle ground. On one end, you've got the bone-dry crowd who run their pistols like they're vintage farm tools. These folks might wipe their gun down once or twice a year and think that's maintenance. Next thing you know, the slide drags like it's swimming through syrup, and every cycle is metal grinding against metal. Here's the truth. No lubrication means increased friction, and friction wears down parts fast. I've examined extractors worn to the point where they could barely grip a spent casing just from running dry. The striker channel collects debris, and without oil to help move grime out of the way, everything slows down. Eventually, the striker can't even strike hard enough to reliably set off primers. But the flip side is just as bad. Some people think more is better and absolutely flood their pistol with oil. I've seen slides dripping with lubricant, with the frame so slick it looks like someone dunked it in motor oil. All that extra oil turns into sludge once it collects dust, carbon, and unburned powder. Now your gun's internals are caked in goop, and your trigger pull feels like it's dragging through wet cement. Proper lubrication is simple. Just a small amount of high-quality oil applied to the wear points, rails, barrel hood, and locking lugs. That's it. Anything more or less than that, and you're asking for trouble. Failing to check for barrel or chamber obstructions. Here's a mistake that can go from annoying to a hospital visit in the blink of an eye. Firing a round through a blocked barrel is a surefire way to turn your pistol into a fragmentation grenade. Let's say you're out in the woods. Your pistol drops into some mud and you figure it's just a little dirt. That tiny obstruction in the bore becomes a serious pressure trap. Pull the trigger, and instead of sending that bullet downrange, your barrel tries to vent the pressure sideways, and steel doesn't flex that way. Even heavy oil buildup inside the bore can cause problems. Excess lubricant, especially if you soaked the inside thinking you were doing it a favor, creates hydraulic resistance. Now your first shot is pushing through that resistance, and that pressure can spike dangerously high. But the most common and deadliest version of this problem is the infamous squib round. That's when a bullet gets lodged in the barrel from an undercharged or faulty cartridge. You hear a weak pop instead of a proper bang, but in the heat of the moment, you might think it's just a fluke and keep firing. Big mistake. If you send another round behind that stuck bullet, you've got a double obstruction. That pressure has nowhere to go, and something's going to give. This is all preventable. Check your bore. If your gun's been exposed to mud, snow, or heavy fouling, or if anything about a shot seems off, stop and inspect it. It only takes a few seconds to make sure your barrel is clear. Don't let a lazy moment cost you your gun or worse. Using the wrong ammo or questionable reloads. Nothing will turn your trusted sidearm into a ruined pile of parts faster than feeding it the wrong kind of ammunition. I've seen shooters jam the wrong caliber into their pistol because it looked close enough. A common one, mixing up 9mm with .380 auto. Sure, it might fit in the chamber, but when you pull the trigger, you're introducing the wrong pressure profile, poor head spacing, and serious risk of damage. But it doesn't stop there. Reloads are a huge liability if you don't know where they came from. Your buddy might swear he's a precision reloader, but if he's weighing powder charges by eye or reusing brass one too many times, you're gambling with your firearm. An out-of-spec casing or inconsistent powder charge can cause failures to extract, poor cycling, or full-blown overpressure failures. And don't even get me started on reloaded rounds with primers seated too shallow or deep. They can cause light strikes, slam fires, or worse. Even bargain bin factory ammo can cause problems. Sure, it might not blow up your pistol, but weak charges can fail to cycle the slide, especially on tighter systems. Now, your extractor's working overtime trying to yank stuck brass out of a chamber that never saw proper pressure. Some folks will shoot steel-cased ammo and wonder why their pistol starts choking after 2 magazines. That rough casing finish is chewing up their extractor and increasing chamber fouling with every shot. It's simple. Only use quality ammunition that matches the exact caliber stamped on your barrel. Stick with reputable brands. It's not worth saving a few dollars if it risks your firearm or your fingers. There you have it. 13 ways shooters end up wrecking their semi-auto handguns. Your pistol isn't just a hunk of metal. It's a precision machine built to tight tolerances. Treat it that way. Use proper ammo, clean it right, lube it smart, and respect the engineering that went into it. Do that, and it'll take care of you for life. Got a cautionary tale? Drop it in the comments, whether it's your mistake or someone else's. We've all been there. And if this breakdown helped you dodge a costly error, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Plenty more firearm knowledge coming your way. Stay safe, shoot smart, and I'll catch you in the next one.